Imagine Indian soldiers drilling in the sub-zero Arctic, while thousands of miles away, a Russian warship slices through the warm, tropical Indian Ocean. As of January 2026, the Relos Pact allows both nations to station 3,000 troops, 10 jets, and 5 warships inside each other's territory. Deployment requires 14 days' notice for jets and 24 hours for warships. This isn't a passive refueling deal. By formalizing the presence of foreign combat hardware on their soil, New Delhi and Moscow have effectively integrated their military logistics into a single shared network. The timing of this rollout was a calculated move. It was operationalized exactly as the U.S. administration in Washington was applying maximum pressure on India, demanding that New Delhi cut its historic ties with Moscow. But for India, walking away from Russia isn't just difficult, it's a physical impossibility. Decades of hardware integration, from S-400 systems to these co-developed BrahMos missiles, means the two military-industrial complexes are essentially fused together. Operationalizing Relos in the face of Western scrutiny was India's definitive answer. New Delhi will not allow its defense strategy to be dictated by any outside power. To understand the logic here, you have to look at Russia's historic geographic curse. For centuries, Moscow has been a massive land power, largely trapped behind ice, desperately needing unrestricted access to warm-water ports to protect its trade. Relos provides that escape. It grants the Russian Navy seamless logistical support across the Indian Ocean, a maritime region that currently facilitates 40% of all global commerce. Meanwhile, India faces a different problem. To fuel its climb toward a $20 trillion economy, India needs massive amounts of energy. But the biggest vault of those resources is thousands of miles away, in the high Arctic. As global temperatures rise, the Arctic ice cap is physically melting, opening up the Northern Sea Route and the Transpolar Route. These are the shipping lanes that will define the next 30 years of global trade. Through this agreement, India secures a logistical footprint across over 40 Russian military bases, ports, and airfields, stretching from the Mediterranean all the way to the Pacific. This trade-off addresses both nations' primary spatial handicaps. Russia finds its long-sought opening into the tropics, while India secures a permanent physical base in the high north. There is also a defensive layer here aimed at Beijing. Russia needs capital to develop its Arctic territory, but it fears that relying solely on China will turn Moscow into a junior partner in its own backyard. India is the perfect alternative. New Delhi is now using its massive reserves of accumulated Russian rupees to fund Indian companies to build the actual ports and pipelines Russia needs. This gives India a direct stake in assets like the Yamal Peninsula's LNG reserves. By securing the corridor from Vladivostok to Chennai, India isn't just buying gas, it's building the infrastructure to protect its supply lines. Ultimately, Relos functions as an economic hedge, allowing both nations to modernize their frontiers without surrendering to Chinese hegemony. But buried in the technical text approved by the Russian State Duma is a clause that goes far beyond peacetime logistics. It allows for base access in what it vaguely calls other mutually agreed cases. This matters because Russia's relationship with Pakistan has disintegrated. After the ISI was caught attempting to steal secrets regarding these S-400 systems, and Islamabad was found covertly supplying weapons to Ukraine, Moscow's trust in Pakistan was permanently shattered. The mutually agreed cases clause acts as a legal loophole. If India and Russia both designate a specific regional threat, like a shared adversary in South Asia, the agreement shifts from basic resupply into something much more active. Legally, this creates a significant gray area. It means that in a major regional crisis, the logistical backbone for a coordinated response isn't something New Delhi and Moscow would have to build from scratch. The framework is already operational. For years, many in the West assumed that India's entry into the Quad meant it would eventually have to pick a side and abandon its partnership with Russia. This diagram shows the actual reality. India now holds nearly identical logistics agreements with the US, France, Japan, Australia, and Russia. It has effectively surrounded itself with a web of superpower support. India uses these parallel agreements to neutralize outside pressure. By maintaining the same level of access with Washington as it does with Moscow, India ensures that no single power can hold leverage over New Delhi's decision-making. This is the definition of true strategic autonomy. It is the absolute refusal to act as a pawn in a bipolar conflict, choosing instead to build a network that serves India's interests alone. By anchoring the Indo-Pacific with the West and the Arctic with Russia, India has turned its geographic position into a source of unique leverage. This dual presence across the planet's most contested waters establishes New Delhi as an essential, independent pole in the global power balance.